Hello and welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast. This is Marcus Sedberry. I'm so thankful for the transformational experience of the NCAA Dr. Charles Whitcomb Leadership Institute. The program is one of the most challenging and rewarding leadership experiences I've ever been a part of. It gave me hands-on strategic planning and career mapping experience. It challenged me to grow personally and equipped me with tangible skills for my professional career. But most of all, it gave me a family of industry experts with shared experiences that I can lean on at any time. Always remember, be loved and be you. Enjoy the episode.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown and welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast, where we highlight executive leadership in college athletics. I'm joined by Yulander Wells. Yulander is the Deputy Athletics Director at Notre Dame. Greetings, Daniel. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You've been there how long now at Notre Dame?
It's been 2 years now.
2 years.
Yeah,
Came
2
in as
years.
deputy.
Came in as deputy. I was at Harvard University before coming to Notre Dame, and then South Florida before that, and then the University of Florida prior to that, and then I was in the private sector.
Yeah. What did you do in the private sector?
Man, so I worked for Angie's List.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, worked for Angie's List, worked for Enterprise Rent-A-Car, and when I graduated from college, I also coached basketball for 2 years.
Oh, really?
At my alma mater, North Central College.
You worked for Enterprise right out of college, too?
Yep.
The management training thing
Did the
that
management
they were trying
training.
hiring all the athletes?
Oh, man, I did all of that. I did the management training program. I did that in sales and worked in the rental car branches. I did that for about a year and a half, then transitioned into the finance and accounting staff because my background, my degree was in finance and accounting, so transitioned into that. And I was with them for 6.5 years. So it's a real thing when they talk about
hiring
Enterprise
athletes.
hiring student
Do they
athletes.
still do that? It used to be
Absolutely.
commercials for it. I don't know.
They still do that.
Yeah.
I mean, they still do that. They're a big partner of the NCAA.
NCAA. I mean, I remember seeing that, thinking like, man, I don't know if I'm working at Enterprise, bro. But then you realize how many people started that and the experience you get, because it wasn't like it's just you just gonna do this. It's like we're gonna train you in different areas of. That's like an excellent program.
It was a great program. I recommend it for any young person to learn how to run a business, understand sales, get yourself outside of your comfort zone. You know, I had to wear a white dress shirt with a tie every day, and I had to be clean shaved.
Wow.
And I think they've changed that policy on being where you couldn't have a goatee or anything anymore.
Okay.
So they've changed with the times on that. But yeah, it was a great program. I learned a lot there, learned how to run the rental branches, learn how to sell.
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's what I needed actually coming. I couldn't even find a job. I graduated in 2001
Okay.
out of Michigan State with 2 degrees, didn't have any experience. I ain't doing no internships and couldn't find a job anywhere.
Should have went to Enterprise,
That's probably
bro.
what I needed right off the bat. They would have gave me all the experience I need. So from there, is that when you went to Angie's List?
Yeah, so I kind of worked my way up the ladder at Enterprise Rent-A-Car and became the accounting supervisor for the Enterprise Rent-A-Car group in the state of Indiana. So started in Chicago, then moved and got promoted to accounting supervisor for the state of Indiana, and then left there to go work for Angie's List as their accounting manager.
Oh, man. And how long were you there?
I was only there for a year and a half.
What year was that?
At Angie's List?
Yeah.
That would have been like 06, 07.
I asked because how old was Angie's List at the time?
It was still relatively young.
Yeah,
I
so-
was one of probably maybe 100 employees there at that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you got the bug, like I need to be back in sports? Or
Well, my wife, and I give her the credit on this one, she is from Florida.
Okay.
And she moved up to the cold with me, living in Indianapolis. And she wanted to go back to school and do her doctoral work. And it was between IU and the University of Florida. So she picked the University of Florida. And so that kind of started the journey for me where I said, okay, if I want to make a career shift, I'll do it now. And so I happened to have my first job in intercollegiate athletics at the University of Florida as the assistant controller.
Oh, so kind of business.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
wow.
Yep.
Did you have connections or you applied for it and went through the regular process?
I applied for it, went through the regular process. The chief financial officer at that time, her name was Susan Parrish, and she's retired now, but she didn't start in intercollegiate athletics either. She worked in public accounting.
Okay.
And she liked my background, and we hit it off in the interview. The funny story about this is I went there with one suit,
Yeah.
Interviewed. I thought I was leaving the next day. After the interview, she was like, I want you to come back tomorrow. So I went and bought another suit that day from JCPenney's.
Yeah, what you gotta do, what you gotta do.
I had to do what I had to do. Wore that suit and got the job offer about 3 days later. And then that was it, man. And it started my journey at the University of Florida.
What was your wife's PhD? And then did she work in that, or does she work in it? What is she?
Yeah, so my wife's PhD is in health and human performance, which is what the PhD in is at the University of Florida. But she's in sport and entertainment management, just like me. So she's a professor at the University of South Florida.
Oh, wow.
She helped start that program. Yeah. So me and her have great conversations about theory and practice and whatnot. And so we've been having those great conversations for a long time. And we're able to bounce a lot of good ideas off of one another and have those conversations.
So talking to a professor, because I went to Baylor, and when I went Baylor, the professor that was running it, he was all practical. It's like, here's the stuff we're gonna learn in class, but there's an internship at A&M. They got a career fair over up at UNT, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it was like, yeah, let's get you these experiences and all that. And then the new regime came in, they were heavy academic. They were heavy, like, let's go do these poster boards and talk about the research we're doing. And in my mind, I'm like, somebody will get a job off of doing a poster board? What are we doing? But what they were doing was like establishing tenure for themselves so that they can be there long term. And then I helped them establish like graduate assistantships with the Football Coaches Association. And then they established, get the experience thing. So they had a strategy to it. But initially I was like, this whole academic thing, what are y'all talking about? Sports? So I wonder about your wife in terms of sport management and, teaching that. Is she heavy academic and heavy research, or what's her angle?
Hey, all faculty members have to have a component of research, right? But she likes to use the term pracademic.
Okay, no,
right?
I like that.
So, and when I was at the University of South Florida, I was heavily involved with the program. I taught classes there, but also a big part of it was making sure that we were helping those young people that were coming through the program have internships within the athletic department, making sure that our student athletes could get into the sport and entertainment management program, because many of the student athletes, certainly at all these institutions, have a passion for it. And so why not get them those opportunities where they can go back to school and study it? And then we were at great partnerships with the professional teams, but also with other entertainment properties in Tampa that allow for those students to get jobs.
That's excellent.
And at the end of the day, that's what it was all about, right?
Does she lean on you for providing practical experience and providing some type of, real life expertise type thing? I'm sure she has a bigger network as you have.
We all talk, we lean on each other, right? To talk about and make the connections with people and to support students. Big piece of it is I just have a passion for students, passion for learning.
Right.
And so this business gives me the ability to do all of that, not only with competition, but actually with teaching.
I think that's excellent. So business, I'm gonna ask you a little bit more about family here in a little bit, but business being your background, I imagine Notre Dame brings you, the stops you made, business is probably a line that goes through everything, right? You come in as a deputy athletics director at Notre Dame for an athletic director. I think I might ask you this on an athletic director U video, for an athletic director who was super non-traditional, come in thinking way different than a lot of other athletic directors when he came on. Are you still leaning hard on that business, or now that you have that, when you decided to accept a job with the title of deputy, it expanded way beyond that? Tell me about that aspect of your career. Yeah.
Well, my journey certainly started in the business operations and finance teams. But I've been fortunate enough to work for several athletic directors that gave me opportunities to work in sales, work in all the elements related to development. So my experience hits on a lot of that. So I've raised money. I've asked people to give dollars, right? I've sold tickets. I've done that. I've done corporate sponsorship pitches. And so I've been fortunate enough to have athletic directors that provided me those opportunities to experience it, right? The successes and the failures. I've been told no.
Yeah.
On several occasions as well. And so I lean on all that past experience to give me the knowledge I needed for the job here at Notre Dame. Yeah.
So back to family, you talk about getting jobs where you have more responsibilities. Even I was just sitting at a round table, and the people at the round table, most of them were young folks who are just now leading 6 interns or leading people who are their age or older, but they're setting a stand. They're writing recommendation letters, right? First time in a leadership role. And as you get more responsibility and more titles, time goes down for yourself, right? Those young folks I was talking to, they're like, yeah, but I'm working all the time. It's, and that's an entry level. I mean, they're like just one step away from entry level job. So I imagine you get into the deputy role, how much time do you have for yourself? And you talk about your wife. How many kids do you have?
We have 3 boys.
3 boys are probably all over the place with energy in the house and jumping all over everything and knocking stuff down. So tell me about that aspect of the family life, the time for family, the time for work. And a phrase I heard today was work-life integration. I don't know if that was your phrase, or tell me about
it. Yeah, it certainly resonates because it's not a balance.
Right.
It's an integration, and it's like it's a relationship, right? There's going to be moments where your spouse or your partner, where the relationship might lean heavily towards doing everything for them, right? So it may be 70-30 at that moment in time, right? So that's unbalanced, right? And then there's maybe other times where it's 40-60 your way, still unbalanced, right? So I look at it in that same manner, that it's not a balance. It's just how do you integrate the family into everything that you're doing? And I think that's an important piece in our industry, particularly with, talent acquisition, retention, personnel. It's a huge piece. And so we have to be cognizant of that. Specific for me, my boys are at everything with me. My wife tries to make it as much as she possibly can, but I love being able to bring my kids to all of the sporting events, to any of the student athlete programming that we may have when they have an opportunity to join it, right? The student athletes are great role models for that. And I think it's important, and as an industry, it's important as a leader for me to model that too, because to your point earlier, we got younger staff who are working a lot of hours, and some of those young people have aspirations of having families, and it's a responsibility for us to model that they can have families and do all these other things and have other interests while also pursuing their passion and pursuing their career work in intercollegiate athletics and working in higher education. And so I integrate my boys. They come over, they shoot at the gym sometimes, lacrosse games, they're out there on the field throwing the lacrosse ball around, you know what I mean? There's times where I'm at the office and I may be needing to get some work done, and they're just sitting at my table in my office with the TV on while I'm working, but I'm there with them and they're there with me, and we have some conversations. There's times where I've presented to people and I made sure the kids came so they could just see that, but I want them to see an active dad, right? And I want them to see this industry because they may have aspirations of being in this industry. Yeah. And it's a fun one.
How old are they, the boys?
I have 14, 11, and 8.
So at what point did you start the process of integrating them in work? And I imagine that depended on where you were and who you worked for at the moment, at that time.
It started immediately when I was working at the University of Florida.
Okay.
It's what I really valued about working there at that time. The women, the men that I worked with there, my wife and I were new parents. Our oldest was born in Gainesville, Florida. My wife was a graduate hall director, so we lived in the dorms. We lived in Murphy Hall when our first son was born, and I could walk to work. And then there's moments where she may have class, and people would take my son, if I had a meeting, and have him in their office and put the blankets down on the side, and the ladies would take care of them. And then when they had something, somebody else would come into that office and watch them for that moment in time while I was still out. And so that for me was a big part of it. We had everyone in that office also had children. And they were older than my son at that time, but we saw them all the time. Yeah. And so for me, that was the modeling that I
Set
saw.
a standard right off the bat.
Right at Gator Boosters, those people in there were incredible for me in the first part of me entering my career in intercollegiate athletics, modeling it, and probably didn't know that they were modeling something for me that I do take considerable pride in, that I want to make sure I model at my stage in my career for other young people.
I imagine from that point you had 2 stops after that?
The University of South Florida, Harvard, and now Notre Dame.
Yes. So I imagine when a institution when you get a call and they're interviewing you, you're also interviewing to find out like, hey, this is the standard I know, right? Family is a part of it. You probably looked for that in the stops.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, at the University of South Florida, which was my second stop, definitely.
Yeah.
The athletic director at the time, Mark Harlan, he had young children. And so his kids would always be in the office, right? The coaches had young children at that time, so they would be in the office. And he was very much about ensuring that kids were around at the games, at the practices, at our facilities. And so no one was uncomfortable bringing their children around because it was modeled, right? And so again, it goes back to that. At Harvard, same thing. You would see people who had their children running around the campus, running around the athletic complex. It was modeled. And at Notre Dame is a very family-oriented community. Right. And we try to model that there as well, and want to have all of our young people, all of the children of families there when able to go to the games, be at practice, cheer on, right? It's a community, and that's what we should be celebrating and promoting at all times.
Give me an example of a time when, you're in family time and then work shows up and you got to make the adjustment, right? Because sometimes you got to make the adjustment.
Man, so the CFP selection show would be...
Oh, just recently.
Recently.
Yeah.
Just recently, that was one. I was coaching my 8-year-old basketball team. 3 dads, and we coach them, have our practices and everything. We were at a tournament coaching. And I told the kids with like 10 minutes left in our first half, like, hey, I've got to leave because the CFP selection show is coming on and we're going to be in it.
Oh, wow.
I just need to see where we're seated.
Well, was the team?
They're all 8-year-olds.
Okay.
They're all 8-year-olds. So my son knows, right? He knows what's going on. And the rest of them, they're like, Notre Dame's going to be in the CFP. I'm like, yes, we're going to be in the CFP. I just don't know who we're going to play yet. But I'm going to be out in the hallway because I got to get on the phone and computer and I got to make some calls as soon as it happens. And so that was one way to do it, right? I had to step away from my son's basketball game to do it. It was funny because all the parents knew,
what was going on.
Because I told the parents, and then when I came back and let them know, we're playing against Indiana. We're gonna,
big game, right?
Big game.
They come a good season. You come good season down the street.
All the kids are cheering. So that's one of the moments. But that integration of it is part of it, right? It can be fun. It can be fun. We don't need to take ourselves so serious all the time. Right. We need to enjoy everything that this industry has to offer with it.
I'll ask a couple questions and we'll wrap. One is, you think about colleagues, right? I don't have any kids, but you know, there might be people or who know you that are starting to have kids, and they're like, man, how do I do this? Like, I may not work for somebody who ain't no kids in the office, or I do. Like, do I just show up with my baby? You know what I mean? Have you ever had conversations like that with colleagues from the industry about being a father and about work-life integration?
Definitely have had the conversations with colleagues in the industry. I will tell you, our athletic director currently at Notre Dame, Pete Bavacqua, has his sons and daughter around, right? So he models it.
Right,
Our head football coach has his sons and daughters at practice, so it models it, right? Our basketball coach, they model these things. And so, the people that I've talked to about it is kind of coming up the industry, Marcus Sedberry at Wisconsin, a close friend of mine, we talk about it. Brian Baptiste at Miami, we talk about it. And so Marvin Lewis at George Bay, like, we talk about it. So it's important that you have some people that you can lean on and talk to. Hey, how you managing this, right? Marvin's an athletic director. Marcus Blossom at Creighton, he's an athletic director. I'm not at that seat, right?
Right.
And so understanding how are you managing,
how you
you
handling
navigating
that.
it,
You
right?
got way less time than I got.
Absolutely,
Right, yeah,
absolutely. But those are some of my closest friends in the industry who I talk to about, how you doing, how you're managing through it. We'll be in the car, kids in the car with us, and we'll say what's up to each of the kids, right? So it's important to have those conversations and dialogues with people that you've come up in the industry with. And then there's people who have just decided not to do it as well.
Yeah.
And
Keep the family.
And you talk to them about it for them as well.
Mm-hmm. Man, that's interesting. That's the last question. Your athletic director is relatively new there, and you said he shows up with his kids. I imagine that's something he knew right off the bat because he was recommended by the previous AD, wasn't he, or something like that? It seemed like.
Well, he's got an incredible background.
Well, no. That's I mean, like he probably already knew the culture there. Did he? I mean, tell me about that aspect.
Yeah, I would imagine that. He's an alum of Notre Dame.
Okay.
Number one.
Yeah.
Very closely aligned because of our relationship with NBC, and he was the president of NBC Sports.
Right, which makes sense. Yeah.
And so he certainly has a familiarity with the ethos of the institution.
Yep.
And that plays a major role, right? Mm-hmm. In terms of when we talk about culture adds and fits to the organization, you certainly want somebody that respects what the university represents holistically. And he certainly does that.
Does
right?
that, yeah.
And then I think all of the people who have worked at Notre Dame, those who have been there much longer than me, can speak openly about how their time at Notre Dame has included their family.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing.
Included their children, right? It's one of the things that makes the university special, that it is a family-friendly, family-first type place. And that's not just with your family, but the people that you're working with, trying to make sure that there's a tight-knit community there. South Bend is a very tight-knit community. Right. And people love that. It's why it's one of the best places to raise kids. And so I think our organization is going to continue to try to exhibit that and wants to make sure that it stays part of the ethos of the university.
I got one last question for you. In our careers, we have aspirations, right? To run things, to go become the prime minister, Canada, whatever job it is, 5-10 years from now, right? And, we established the core values for the culture of our organization. And it sounds to me like family has been, when you started in college athletics, I don't know if Enterprise had kids around, but when you started in college athletics, sounds to me that family has been one of the staples of a family-friendly environment that ties in the term work-life integration. And so is that a part of your organizational leadership philosophy when you think forward to wherever you end up 5 and 10 years from now?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Family is one of my top 5.
Okay.
And I would say top 3, right? My faith is certainly number 1. And then family is right there at number 2 and 3, because these institutions are going to be around.
They are.
When our bodies all break down, right? They're going to be around. And I believe strongly in making sure that my family is first in whatever it is that I'm doing. I will not sacrifice that.
Right.
And I hope that my staff feels that same way, right? If they're sick, if they're not feeling well, I want them to go take care of themselves because I view them as family.
Right.
But I also view them that sending them home or saying, hey, don't come in, take care of yourself is important so that they can be there for their families. And so that's an important piece for me. And family will always be a deciding factor for me in any place I go and anything that I do.
I think that's excellent. Well, Yulander, this has been an excellent conversation. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us here on One Question Leadership Podcast.
Appreciate you having me, Tai.
Yes, sir. That was Yulander Wells. He's the Deputy Athletic Director at Notre Dame. Of course, I am Ty Brown with one question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today.
This episode of the One Question Leadership Podcast is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.